Dress Your Family in Corduroy and Denim was written by David Sedaris and published in 2004. David Sedaris is a writer living currently in England, and he makes frequent appearances on the National Public Radio show This American Life. In Dress Your Family in Corduroy and Denim, each of the 22 chapters is a short essay about an experience in his life. These experiences range in setting from Raleigh to Paris and from the early 60s to the late 90s. In one chapter, Sedaris wittily recounted a conversation he had with a cab driver while in the Netherlands about the differences between the American and Dutch versions of Santa Claus. In another chapter, he explained his childhood plans to become a hippie by begging for money at the state fair. Sedaris effectively entertains the reader with his witty tone and interesting anecdotes. An example of this witty tone can be found in the chapter about him and his siblings when their mother locked them out in the snow. He wrote, "It happened, Shirley. Selfish mothers wanted the house to themselves, and their children were discovered, years later, frozen like mastodons and blocks of ice." There was another bizarre story about his encounter with a mouse and a bus of American tourists while he was living in France. This story began with, "I was on the front porch drowning a mouse in a bucket when this van pulled up, which was strange." These light-hearted essays make it obvious that the author's purpose was predominantly to entertain. Most of the essays involved family members, made up of his father Lou, his mother Sharon, and his 5 siblings Lisa, Amy, Gretchen, Tiffany, and Paul. Sedaris spends a lot of time talking about his strange relationship with his younger brother Paul. There are also a couple essays involving his partner Hugh. In all of these stories, Sedaris uses sensory language. At one point, he uses this sensory language to describe his sister Tiffany's calloused feet. "My sister has appendages connected to her ankles, but I cannot call them feet. In color, they resemble the leathery paws of great apes, but in texture, they are closer to hooves." He made use of sensory language again in a funny way to describe his elderly real estate agent. Natural. A strange word when used by an 80-year-old with an unlined face and hair the color of an American school bus. In one of his essays, Sedaris contradicts himself by using a hyperbole and an understatement to explain his uncomfortable experience of having to ride around in the back seat of a sports car for an entire day. "At the end of every ride, I had to teach myself to walk all over again, but that was just a minor physical complaint." He also uses a rhetorical device when he alludes to a famous photographer of poor people during the Depression to describe his sister's apartment. He stated, "My sister is living in a Dorothea Lange photograph." One slightly negative critic of his book wrote, "Upon finishing this, I only mustered up some hearty chuckles. Success hasn't spoiled Sedaris, it's just stripped him of his anonymity." Another more positive critic stated, "It's tough to write humor. It's tougher still to make humor matter. But Sedaris illuminates the human condition, catching us off guard while we laugh our heads off. This collection is Sedaris' best book yet. For me, I haven't yet gotten a chance to read any of his other books in order to judge if his writing has gotten better or worse, but I thoroughly enjoyed this book for its wit, which is exactly what I believe Sedaris was aiming for when he wrote Dress Your Family in Corduroy and Denim."